Hey there everyone, Witch Hazel again, finally back. Happy spring, everyone. I am so happy it's finally bright and sunny, colorful, and yeah, it's been great. The last few days I have been in a much better mood, so I'm trying to capitalize on that. And now my nose has not been happy at all, but I don't care. It's beautiful out, and I've got my nice springtime scarf on, so happy spring. Today I thought I would give a little rundown of some places I go, things I look at when I am kind of devoid of witchy inspiration. So I know we don't like to admit to it, but it happens. Sometimes we just do not feel witchy. What you gonna do? But during those times, sometimes I have some good luck looking in other places, kind of looking for gold right in front of you, basically. Meaning finding the treasures right in front of your nose that you wouldn't otherwise think are treasures. And I have come up with a list of 10 non-internet places to find witchy inspiration. Because we get into that kind of rabbit hole a lot, I think. We look to the internet, to Google, to Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, etc., etc., and those are wonderful resources. But if you're like me, you want to unplug a little bit once in a while. I mean, witches by nature want to be more connected with the earth, not with technology. So here is the list. First thing, what I have been using, and I will show you how I've been using this in a separate video, is an old almanac, witch's almanac, that my mom had laying around. This is one of Llewellyn's Witches Spell-a-Day almanacs, and it is from 2009. Why my mom has hung on to this, I don't know. But, you know, I've been staring at it in her bookshelf for ages, and I said, you know, I am positive she does not use it. So I went through and I just started taking notes. I said, okay, for the month of March, I'm going to take note of anything in here that's suggested that I think is interesting, that I may want to try, I may want to tweak, research, etc. and see how that works for me. And I put all of that into this notebook that I mentioned in a previous video. It is a Miguel Ruiz notebook, and I will be showing you how that worked out in another video. So, Spell-a-Day Almanac does not have to be current, because we're only looking for inspiration. We don't necessarily need exact correspondences. And the nice thing about these is that you get a general correspondence for the theme of the month. That said, you could also look in any sort of other book or paper item. I also have written down here magazines and bibliomancy. So in magazines, I look through magazines and I tear out stuff on herbs all the time, recipes, clothing items, anything and everything that piques my interest. Some of it can be useful witch-wise. Maybe some of it is useful for some other aspect of my life, but the point is that it's very inspiring to me. And other books, things like, you know, there's 365 everything these days, 365 spells for the year, tarot spreads, tarot spells, etc. Anything like that, just rummage through it for inspiration. Bibliomancy is not quite the same thing. I'm sure you've all probably heard of it or seen it, but you just choose a book, open it to a random page, put your finger on a line, and see what it brings up. And in my case, the almanac, I landed on the author Mickey Mueller. What does that bring up for me? It actually brings up Hogan's Heroes, the last name Mueller, they use it a lot. But anyway, so I could go on a ramble about that, just from point A to B to C, and see where I wind up thought-wise, and see if it comes to anything of interest. For example, that was basically a joke, but if I focus on this name Mueller, then I might think, oh, well, it's a German name. My family's German. You know, I haven't done ancestor work in a while. I wonder if there were any Muellers in my family. Then I might get into necromancy or ancestor altar or, you know, so just even from a name, anything can spark the imagination. Alright, so Old Almanac, Bibliomancy, magazines. I also have art. I love looking at, I don't think I have anything right now, but postcards, or even, yeah, I'm going to stick with just pictorial art. Anything like in a museum, in an exhibit, postcards, as said, in a shop somewhere. Lots of these things will just bring up ideas and memories, and I'll want to do something with them. As an example, here's something that I found while I was in Portland visiting my brother. It's a postcard of the Bremer Stadtmusikanten. I said that right, I hope. Die Bremer Stadtmusikanten, yeah. It's a children's story that I remember from my childhood. And my sister and I used to actually have this, the animals, we had it as kind of this silhouette thing. It was black plastic, it was like a silhouette, and we had it on the wall forever in our room. So this has a lot of personal nostalgic meaning to me. And so I can think of, you know, what can I do with that? Maybe a spell for nostalgia, maybe something to do with childhood and renewing some childhood dreams, or, you know, getting back in touch with the things I loved as a kid. So it could be something that seems totally random, an image that seems completely random can have personal meaning, and you can look for inspiration in that. Alright, same goes for daydreams. What are you zoning off about during the day? Dreaming of winning the lottery? Put together a luck spell, or a money oil, or something to that effect. Dreaming of being the next intergalactic space hero? Look into some astronomy or astrology. What do the stars mean? Constellations. The history of astrology. Astrology used to be a science. You know, what does it all mean to you? That science will take you back to, you know, the good old days of the Silk Road and the Middle East, and the just, I believe it was Baghdad that was a huge hub for the greatest thinkers and philosophers. And what does all of that mean to you? You know, all from daydreaming. Daydreaming. Conversations. What comes up in conversation that may trigger some spell work or ritual work for you? As an example, I was talking to someone not long ago about kind of whatever happened to those dreams I had in high school, you know, how I thought my life was going to go. And the idea was kind of a downer, it was kind of sad, like, yeah, my life didn't go the way I thought it would. And we sometimes will get focused on the negative with that and forget that, well, life changes because of the choices that we made, and maybe life has gone better, or maybe there's a reason we think that life is so terrible right now. Maybe we're gearing up to something better because we needed to learn these lessons, these hard lessons now. Could be. So I thought of the idea of doing a dream memorial. Some sort of a small ritual or a spell in which I don't just let go of those old dreams. I don't consider them kind of useless trash these days. I think they had a point, they had a purpose that they served at that point, and that purpose can be memorialized, can be remembered, and thought of in terms of nostalgia and kind of bittersweet, upbeat, rather than just depressing. So you might look at that. Same goes for music, movies. Music, what does it inspire in you emotionally? Whether it's lyrics or just if it's instrumental, what kind of emotional reaction do you get from that music? Sometimes that can be used to build or to emphasize the kind of emotion and energy that you want in a particular working that you're putting together. For example, the last full moon, I didn't use music, but I considered it and I wrote it down as a note. I was working on my home blessing and release for the house that I'm selling. And I wanted to kind of remember all the good aspects of this home, to thank the goddess for watching over this home for me, for making it a good place for me and a good investment after I left. And so to give thanks and to move on, to say, okay, I'm ready to move on to the next phase for me, whatever's coming ahead. And had I put music to that, I probably would have used Sarah Brightman's The Journey Home, because that song to me is just so full of nostalgia and just kind of happy memories. I thought that would probably be a good fit. Another example I've used in a Lotto Luck spell just for fun. I used Frank Sinatra's version of Luck Be a Lady. And so have fun with it, because music can be a very powerful thing in terms of energy and emotional reaction. So consider it. Movies. Take inspiration from movies. Practical magic is a big one. A lot of us like, what did they do in there? Movies can combine some historical fact, some pure fiction, but all of it is entertaining, no matter what. So did any of it particularly resonate with you as something that, hey, I could probably try that, as a way of using a tool, or the Amas Veritas spell that we all really love? Can I put together something similar myself? Can I use the kitchen broom or the dust buster in creating my circle, you know? See what kind of inspiration you can get from there. Museums. Visit your local museums. This is all kinds. Art, natural history, science, all of it will have something that you can use in your work. I love going to the Museum of Nature and Science in Denver and looking at the rocks and minerals, getting ideas from those exhibits, especially the ones that focus on the rocks and minerals, the gems and minerals in relation to Colorado's mining history. So then I get correspondences between the place where I live and those gems. Same goes for science museums, anything to do with the planets and their scientific correspondences, because I find them, science has its place as well in magic, and I like to see where current science overlaps with the old science, which is astrology. Art museums, that goes back to the art influence. Anything you can find. I found a quote when I was in Oregon. I went to the Oregon Historical Society Museum and I looked at their exhibit on Oregon's history, and there was a beautiful quote about nature having once been or being conceived of as a person, and correlating natural geography with human geography. So I wrote that down and I put it in my little notebook. And lastly, nature. Go out into nature, look for signs. And I'm going to do a separate video on how to do that. But start to keep track of things that you see the most when you go out, things that are in your region, your neighborhood, your little sphere of influence. Take note of these things. You don't have to live out in the countryside to do this. I live downtown in a city. I live in Denver. Now, for me, that's a big city. It's not a huge city like New York or Los Angeles, but it's urban. And I always go around taking note of the different herbs and things, the different animals I see when I'm out on a walk. So start doing that. It's great exercise, and it's a wonderful way to get ideas and to start to see correlations between different times of year, different seasons, and the things that you see. Alright, so hopefully this didn't get too long-winded, but those were some of my ideas of ways to find inspiration when you don't really have anything coming to you. And I am going to attempt this quarter, one of my goals is to have corresponding blog posts for you guys and get everything set up so that when I put out the video I can have the link, so check below, see if I did this. But I also have the link to the blog post where I'll have it all written out a little bit more concisely, and hopefully it'll all make sense. And let me know if you like that format. So till next time, I hope you go out and enjoy the spring, and blessed be.